My name's Dave Dubeau, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Today our special guest is Lou Gordon. He is zooming in from beautiful Cambridge, Massachusetts. And Lou is a real estate investor himself, but his main business is he is the primary broker in his own real estate brokerage. And what we're going to be talking about here today is the experience Lou's got over the years working with mom and pop real estate investors, helping them to get into the game, helping them to scale up, get past their first primary residence into investment property, into small multifamily, that sort of things. Plus, Lou's got a lot of experience in helping his clients, his investor clients, lease up their properties. So, Lou, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Lou, give us a snapshot of what your business looks like today, the end of 2024. What does your brokerage look like? And let's talk a little bit about the kind of investors you typically work with.
So we work with a lot of local investors in the Boston metro area. And what we see a lot of, and it's a great way for people to get started investing, is through their primary residence. A lot of people think about investing like, I need to go and put together a bunch of partners and we need to buy a 10-unit apartment building and have this many doors and this and that. And what a lot of people don't realize is that your primary residence can really be one of the best, most effective investment vehicles for a number of different reasons. So number one,
not if you ask Robert Kiyosaki.
I keep seeing this stuff where people are like, oh, buying a home is not a good investment. And, we've certainly been spoiled over the last few years, because when you look at the growth rates from COVID to now for people's real estate holdings, I mean, you saw there were some years that we had 15, 18% year over year growth in the value of these properties. And obviously it's going to be different depending on what area you're in, but
no, I'm giving you a hard time, Lou, because I actually agree with you. Like, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah, I understand where Kiyosaki's coming from, but for the vast majority of everyday folks, almost all of their net worth is tied up in their home, their primary residence. So comparing renters to homeowners, it's night and day what their net worth is after a relatively short period of time. So yeah, I completely get it.
Yeah, and so you buy that first property and you move in, and it could be a condo, it could be a single family home. Some people, start off with a multifamily, maybe they buy a two-family and rent out the bottom unit and live in the top unit. But you're getting gains in a lot of different kinds of ways. So number one, you're paying down that mortgage. So you buy the home, and those monthly payments that you would have been making towards rent, now you're paying the mortgage, and that principal is getting bigger over time, the amount of equity that you have. So you're paying down the loan. And then in addition to that, the property itself is becoming more valuable. So your equity is growing in two different directions. You're paying your debt, you're getting increased value. In the United States, you can also write off that interest on your taxes. So the interest that you're
lucky
paying
suckers.
on that,
Tell you what.
I mean, it's funny. I always tell people, when you look at the tax code, it had to have been written by real estate people, because there's just so many advantages to being involved in real estate in the U.S. From different tax standpoints. And I'm going to get into that more when we talk about why a primary residence can be an amazing investment vehicle. So you're getting this tax deduction, you're paying down your loan, your property's becoming more valuable. So you live in it for a little while, and maybe you started with 3% down or 5% down, and over a few years, that equity has grown and grown. So now you've got a few different options that you can consider. So option one, very simple. You could sell that home and go and buy another property, you cash out. Now, another advantage of being in the US is that when you sell your primary residence in the US, as long as you've lived there for at least 2 out of the previous 5 years, you can avoid capital gains tax up to about a $500,000.
Mm.
So what some investors I know do here is they flip primary residences. They buy fixer-upper properties and they move into them, fix them up, live in them for a couple of years, sell them basically tax-free, and then move on to the next property. And they just do that over and over again. And obviously, one thing we always have to talk about with investment is that everybody's life is different. Like if you're married and you've got a few kids, it may not be practical for you to buy a new house every 2 years and uproot your family. Like your family might not like that very much if you're
Yeah.
moving around like this to make your money. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to invest, and people definitely need to think about not specifically what is going to make them the most money, but also like what fits in their lives. And that's where we get into another option that you can consider where you lived in this primary residence, your equity has grown. Maybe you're making a little bit more money at work than you were when you first bought the house. So now another option, and what a lot of people did in the last few years, is you can pull that equity and use that equity to buy your next property without selling the first property. And
Right.
I actually did this myself. We bought our primary residence in 2018, and we lived there for 4 or 5 years. And our equity, we did very well. And so we were able to pull that equity, buy our next house, move into the next house, and then keep that first house as a rental property. And we see this a lot in our area, especially because you see a lot of people in metro areas, their first home is a condo because
Right.
you're just getting started, and
Affordability.
it's more affordable, it's easier to maintain because those bigger capital projects, you're not if they got to replace the roof on your building, you're not coming out of pocket for that by yourself, you're splitting that with a few people. So as people's lives change, they start off in that condo, they, live there for a few years. Maybe they were single when they bought it, then they got married, maybe they've had their first kid, they've outgrown it, but they'll keep that condo when they go and buy that single family in the burbs. And now they've got an investment property in the city and they're living in, one of the suburbs, and they've got the nice school system and all of that sort of thing. So we work with a lot of investors who maybe just own one investment property or a couple of investment properties. Maybe they've hopped a few times before they come to me, and they've got maybe 3 condos in the city, and they're managing those. So we come in, and what we help investors to do in our area is, number one, we're always going to want to maximize your rents. So, this is an important service that brokers can provide by having a good understanding of those rental markets to know this is what you can get, making sure they're getting that top dollar rent. The other thing that we're very keen on is making sure that our investors don't have any days of vacancy. And this is something that takes a little bit of work and planning on our part, but it involves making sure that you find the favorable leasing cycles. Like what are the months where it's easiest to rent an apartment, a single family, like whatever it is that you're trying to rent out. Like what are
Yeah.
the months where it's easiest to find a renter? And then how much advance notice do we need to have to make sure that we get that next renter in place, and don't have any gaps between when the present tenant moves out and when the next tenant moves in. Now, in our metro area, it's not the same way that it is everywhere. Like in a lot of areas, people will move out of a home and there's expected vacancy. There's, okay, tenant moves out, let's get our cleaning crew in there, let's get our painting crew in there, let's get our maintenance people. In Boston Metro, there really is no gap most times between when the first tenant moves out and when the next tenant moves in. So a
Because
lot of time,
there's so much demand for rental properties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just a market where it's very favorable towards the people who own property. There's a lot of people looking for it, and part of that is because of we have so many colleges here. You just have this huge influx of people every year that are Harvard, MIT, Boston University, Northeastern. I mean, it's dozens and dozens of top flight universities in the area.
Right.
But there's also we have a very robust biomedical industry. We have a robust financial services industry, healthcare. We're just we are a city that people are constantly moving in and out of. So there's never a lack of people wanting these apartments, and it's allowed it so that owners have been able to kind of set terms that are favorable to them. And so a lot of times what you'll see is a lot of these properties are on a September 1st lease cycle, and the present tenant will move out at 7 a.m. on September 1st, and the next tenant will move in at noon on September 1st.
Yeah. Not much
So
time for a turnaround there.
no, no. I mean, at best, you're getting your cleaning crew in there to do the cleaning before the next people move in. Sometimes you're not even able to get the cleaning crew in there prior. They have to come, maybe the next day after the next tenants have moved in and do the cleaning. And in our leases, we have it written that tenants will allow up to 30 days for owners to come in and do the maintenance that might need to be done. So if they do move in and an appliance isn't working or whatever, that there's an allowance for that, and the owner's gonna, come and take care of it. Uh,
Mhm.
but we work really hard to make sure that that runs smoothly every year, that we are finding the new tenant at the best possible rent, while also, and this is a difficult thing that not every broker in the city is really skilled at, is being respectful of the tenants who are in the properties right now. And this is from a brokerage standpoint, I don't know that this gets talked about enough when people talk about investing. With real estate investing, what we always want people to remember is that this is not just an asset on your spreadsheet. Like if you want an investment that is really like set it and forget it, you can buy stocks, you can buy there's a whole number of investments where you can stick your money in there, and then you don't necessarily have to think about like what the investment is doing until you're ready to like cash it out. I mean, you're going to watch the value of it go up and down, but the thing with real estate is you have people living in these properties. Like these are human beings, they have lives, they have hopes and fears and dreams, and like there needs to be some sort of uh friendly relations between, if it's not between tenant and owner, at least between tenant and property manager or tenant and
Right.
broker. uh and especially in a state like ours, Massachusetts, the laws are incredibly tenant friendly. So if there ever is a dispute, you do not want to be a landlord going to court with a tenant in Massachusetts. Like
Yeah.
it can take 6 to 12 to 24 months to evict somebody here. And
Yeah.
if they're still paying the rent, like it can go on for a very long time and be very expensive if you ever do get into conflict. And so number one, we're always trying to educate our clients on acts of diplomacy of like if there ever is a dispute, you got to figure out how you're going to work this out with this person in an amicable way, because once you get the lawyers involved, like really you're
No,
not going to come
nobody
out.
wins usually in that case.
No, the
Yeah.
lawyers are the only ones that win when you
Yeah,
go to
exactly.
hire the lawyers. And so one challenge that you face is that we're showing properties that are occupied at the time that we're showing them, because since you're not having that vacancy period,
Right.
if we're on let's say we're on a June 1st lease cycle, I'm getting in touch with the tenants in January, February, and if they're moving out, I want that listing on the market by no later than March 1st, so I can have a good 90 days of marketing that property to try to get my owner the best possible rent.
Hmm.
Now, the tenant is still living in the property in March,
Yeah. How do you
and
juggle
so
that?
so what we do is we coordinate with the tenants to let them know when the showings are going to happen. And the way that I've set the system up, and there is no like specific law en masse of like you have to give this much notice and you can only come during these times, but the way that we have found that makes it so that tenants don't get mad at us. So number one, we always give at least a day's notice for showings. Now,
Okay.
I have quit writing into leases 24 hours notice because there's always a group of tenants that like you'll give them 22 hours notice and they'll be like, well, my lease says that I get 24 hours notice. And it's like, come on, are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
So I just worded it as like no same day showings. Like, well, you will
Smart.
find out the
Yeah.
day before that
Now,
the showing.
do you try to book in multiple showings at the same time?
So the way that we set it up, I use Showing Time, and I don't know if you're familiar with Showing Time is this great software that allows brokers to schedule showings with other brokers. But what the software does really well is you can have owners and tenants set up in that same software. So like another broker wants to show my listing, they put in a request, I approve it. When I approve it, the tenant gets a notification from Showing Time that a broker put in a request and they want to come and show the property at 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. The broker gets a message back from Showing Time that gives them the lockbox information for how to access the property. And it allows the tenant, the agency, that if there's something going on that's important, they can actually cancel the showing on their end. They don't even need to get in touch with me. They can go through the Showing
Oh,
Time
that's
software
convenient.
and say,
Yeah.
oh, I've got family in town. I can't accommodate a showing during that time, or whatever it happens to be. Uh, and then we just find a different time that the broker's able to get over there to show the property. So it's a way to give the tenants a sense of agency and control, which is super important because what a lot of brokers in the state don't understand is even if you've got a lease contract that says I have permission to show this property, if a tenant wants to make things difficult for you, they can, and there's not a lot of recourse on the owner's side or the broker's side to do something about that. If a tenant stands in their doorway and says you can't come in to show this unit, what
You're
are you
out of
going to
luck.
physically push them
Yeah.
aside and say no, I'm allowed to? Like, are you going to call the police and say I've got a lease contract that says I can show this unit? It's like, no, you're just not getting in.
Yeah.
So it's very important that they feel like they are part of the process because I mean, let's be real. This is a process that does not benefit the existing tenant. That
No, of
they're
course not.
they're moving out. They have no
It's a pain in their
stake in
butt.
it. Yeah. It's just a thing that they've got to deal with. And the one thing that's helpful is that most tenants understand that when they rented that apartment to begin with, they were the beneficiary of this process. Like they were
Yeah.
the ones going into occupied apartments to figure out where they wanted to live. And so most of them can reasonably say, okay, well, I did this before. Now the next person needs to do this to see my apartment. Um, but and
Yeah,
in
it's
general, we
very
don't have a.
important to have that diplomacy and that tact with the tenants that's going to smooth things over a lot. Lou, time flies when we're having fun. If people are watching this and they'd like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can visit us on our website, c21revolution.com, and put in a request, and we'd love to talk to you.
Awesome, Lou. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you on the next one. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.